Got it. And let's do our slideshow. Oh, people rolling in.
Here we go. Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in about 60 seconds. Reubs, do you want to bring your screen up when you're ready?
Yeah. Cool. Let everybody know we're in the right place.
Here we go. That's the one. Cool. We'll give what do we got? We'll go another 20 seconds and we'll rip into it.
Cool.
All right, that is 60 seconds. Cool. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. Yeah, really exciting session we got here today, setting up your jobs for the 2023 financial year. Now, we've had almost 400 registrations for this webinar, which is huge. Generally you get, sort of 80, maybe 150 is a really, really good number. So to have 400 registered for this is really exciting, which just really goes to show the value in covering this stuff. So I'm your MC today, but the Ruben will be covering all the content. So Ruben's got arguably the most experience in the world at this stuff. So it's a real pleasure to get to learn this stuff from him. So yeah, Rubes, take it away, man.
Cool. Thanks, Will. Great. So hopefully you're all here for setting up your jobs for 2023. If not, wrong webinar. But if you are in the right place, that's what we're here to do today. This is roughly 60 minutes, and it's a workshop because we're going to be working. It's not a sit back and listen, although you're welcome to do that. You should have received an email from me about 15, 20 minutes ago with some resources we're going to be using. And if not, I'll show you where to get those shortly. But let's crack on. Sweet. Throughout the duration of this webinar, these are our hosts. Here's our agenda before I move on to that. During this webinar, if you have any questions, use the Q&A. Will's going to be monitoring that. And there's also a chat, which you're welcome to use, and Will's going to be chatting away. Because of the number of people here, we're probably going to save a lot of the questions till the end. And if we don't get to your question, we'll reach out to you personally after this. Sweet. So here's what we're covering. We're going to start with some revision for a lot of us is accounting industry billing models, because they greatly determine the method of deployment for our jobs. Oh, we've got a hand raise. What do we do with those?
What do we do?
We'll raise, maybe leave that hand up for the next 60 minutes. We're going to cover 3 methods of deploying your jobs. 20 plus examples, heaps more than 20 in the examples I sent, but some good examples of XPM Job Templates. We're going to show you the XPM Job Import Template, so how you physically get those jobs into your XPM. 5 things to look at before you start your job. Or for your job managers to look at before they start their jobs. And then lastly, probably one of the biggest struggles that people have is, particularly with fixed fee jobs, is how do I know whether they're going well or not throughout the year? And I'm going to touch on that at the end. Cool. Sweet. So firstly, just want to talk about what we're not talking about today. We're talking mainly about our annual predictable work. We're not talking about loading in jobs for one-off stuff, unforeseen events, things that are going to happen between now and the end of the financial year. And we're not talking about setting up internal jobs. We've got lots of that content on our Link Academy YouTube channel if you're after that today. We're mainly talking about the stuff that's repeatable and predictable, which is most of the time our annual engagements. And a lot of the time that'll be for a bundle of services. And we're going to be looking a lot at fixed fees today, but a variety. Cool. What is a job? A job in XPM terms is determined greatly by how you are invoicing for your services. We have billable fees, so that would be your more traditional invoiced in arrears, time and cost type invoicing arrangement. We have quoted fees jobs, which is the same sort of thing, but with a fixed fee on it. Also often invoiced in arrears. And then lastly, we have fixed price agreements, which is anything that's on like a recurring invoicing basis, whether that be monthly, quarterly, weekly, and in Australia, sometimes called annual service agreements. There are other variations on these terms, but they basically mean the same thing. If you're bundling your services, you need to bundle your revenue. So what that means is if you're bundling your services, that's a single job, and we can sync our invoices at one location. And we'll talk about that shortly. Cool. Now, talking about in a bit more depth there, our billable fees is your more traditional method of invoicing, where we're doing time and invoicing that at the end, either on completion or throughout the life of that job. There will be an hourly rate determined by staff or set for the specific service. The thing that makes billable fees easy, I suppose, is that your timesheets are directly associated with the invoice, even if they're not expressly shown on the invoice. Time is related directly to each invoice. We can also have deposit invoices under this arrangement. Some practices I've seen recently are issuing a 50% deposit for the value of last year's invoice to start, even though they're on the billable fees actual time and cost basis. The customer will be charged on the actual basis, but they're starting it off with a deposit. So don't think that deposits are exclusive to fixed fee engagements. And the kind of jobs we all have, regardless, even if you're mostly fixed fee, a lot of us will still have billable fees in our business because we deal with general queries on this basis sometimes. We have out-of-scope services, which we charge on this basis. And maybe there's some specialist one-off advice which we can't foresee or scope that we would need to charge on an hourly basis. So all of us will have billable fees in our business somewhere. Cool. Quoted fees, similar sort of stuff, but it is what it says. It's a fixed price on that bundle of services. This can be done either for a bundle of services, $5,000 for all these things we're going to do for you, but it could also be a fixed fee per GST or per BAS return. That's also a quoted fee. Fixed fees are often invoiced on completion, but yeah, again, can also have a deposit invoice component. And lastly, this is the one people get most confused about, is the fixed price agreement. We ran a whole webinar on this 2 weeks ago, and if you're interested in that, you'll find it on our events page at linkedpractice.com. You can watch it down here. But we go into this in a lot more depth, but basically these are a fixed price, but spread over a finite period. So that might be monthly, quarterly, weekly. And there are 3 flavors, and it's important you know which flavor you're selling and doing. That's really, really important. And we'll kind of touch on that here, but most of it is covered in our last webinar. So see that webinar there. Great. Just to talk about these 3 flavors, I've stolen these straight from Will's webinar, but this is the in advance method. So this would be where you're offering a bundle of services and you're spreading that payment over 12 months. What makes this method unique is that you are actually collecting all of the revenue for this job in advance. So there will be 12 invoices, and that's represented by these blue dots. We have red dots, which represent our in-period tasks, and depending on what country you are in, that will be BAS returns, GST returns, anything you're doing throughout the year. And then there'll be some period where we finish the financial year and we do our annual accounts tasks. Now, why this matters for job setup is because your job is actually alive for up to 24 months. You've got 12 months where you're collecting revenue and not doing that much work, little bits and pieces, general queries, GST returns maybe. And then you've got a whole year there to deliver the bulk of that work being the annual accounts job. So when we're doing our job setup, if you're using fixed price agreements, you need to be aware that your jobs are going to be basically twice as long as what you may be thinking. Cool. The in-period activity, this is probably the most in-period method of fixed price agreements. This is probably the most popular. This is where we are collecting invoicing at the same time we're doing our in-period activities. But what's different about this is this green dot is actually for last year's annual accounts. So we've got kind of a misalignment of financial periods there. That's fine. That's got its own consequences. But the important part of this for you guys today is that your jobs will be 12 months long, and we're collecting revenue at the same time as we're doing the work. Lastly, there's the contract period. And I don't like to talk about this one, but I will because people use it. This is like the birthday method. That means that every client has a birthday, and that date is the day they met you, basically. And we start invoicing from that date, and we set up a new job on their next birthday every year. So if your customer started with you in September, every September, you're going to start a new engagement for them. And yeah, starts off really good when you're a small practice, and then when you get 50 new engagements you've got to set up every month, becomes a nightmare. So yeah, we won't get into that, but much further. Which method is best? We cover this in our webinar, so I won't go over it, but just to say that in advance, great. Good for cash flow, harder to sell, but awesome for your business. In period, easiest probably to understand and manage. Not as good for cash flow because you've got to do the work as you're earning it. Easiest to onboard, easiest to sell, and lastly, contract period. Don't do the birthday thing. It only ends in tears. So if you want to know more about that, watch that webinar from 2 weeks ago. Why does any of this matter for job setup? Well, how we have our invoicing, as you can see from those diagrams, greatly determines the duration and the scope of the services that we're offering. So we must understand what we're offering at what price over what period. This is the golden rule. Doesn't matter what practice management system you're using out there. You must always be aligning your revenue with your time. Why? Because that is how we can price and deliver our services accurately. That's how we can measure our team and individual performance. It's how we can measure our work in progress. And it's how we can identify jobs at risk throughout the life of the engagement. If you have your revenue over here and your time all over the place, you can't achieve any of these things. So that's what we're working toward. Cool. Yes, let's continue. All right. Actually, before I move on, I have a poll I prepared earlier. I'm not a fan of polls and webinars, but this one's going to help me out. I've just launched it. So if you could let us know how you are currently deploying your jobs into XPM, that'll kind of give me a guide about where I should focus my efforts. Ooh, look at it go. I'll just put it up so everyone can see. There you go. Look at it go. Cool to watch, eh? I like this. We never close our jobs. Yuck. Cool. We'll let it run for another 20 seconds, but it looks like pretty much everybody. Amanda's raised her hand again. I don't know if you want to jump in the chat, Will, and
yeah, no
see
problem.
what you can do.
They can't see the poll.
Ah, that's a shame. Cool. I'll give you a rundown when it's finished. I put it on my screen that I'm sharing, but maybe they just hide that in webinars.
We're pretty new to doing webinars, by the way, guys. We're still trying to figure this out.
Cool. All right, I'll end that poll now, but before I do, I'll tell you that 28 out of 131 people are using Practice Ignition. 51 out of 131 are using XPM Recurring Jobs. 20 out of 131 are using an XPM Job Import, which is what we're spending a bit of time talking about today. 59 out of 131 people are, our team create jobs as and when we need them. That's the highest at the moment. And 36 out of 131 people, which is 27%, use a mix of the above methods, and only one person ever closes their jobs. Yuck. We'll talk about why that's a bad idea later on. Cool. Okay. Can you still see my screen, Will? Oops.
Yeah, you can see your screen. We couldn't see the poll, though. I couldn't see the poll.
Oh, couldn't you? That's a shame. All right.
We'll figure that out for next time.
Yeah, it populated live. It was quite cool to watch. All right. Sweet. So 3 methods of deploying XPM jobs. These are the 3 most popular methods, and they're covered in the poll. It is possible to be using a mixture of all 3 methods. A lot of practices are using a mixture of all 3 methods. Very few practices are using 100% Practice Ignition for all of their engagements. Very few practices are using 100% recurring jobs, for example. And so that leaves a mixture of jobs in the middle that we're going to need to get into XPM somehow. And that's the XPM Job Import process we're going to cover together today. So inside Practice Ignition, let me see if I can just share my screen, actually. Hold on, share my other screen. There we go. So inside Practice Ignition, those of you that are using it, you'll be aware that there's an old proposal editor and the new proposal editor. And I'll just touch on, we're going to get into this in a bit more depth. So
got some really good questions coming through in the chat, Reubs, but we'll answer those at the end because some of them are quite in-depth questions. Okay, so cool. Keep them coming, and we'll have a bit of a run through at the end of the webinar. And we'll
see how we go for time.
So there are some very specific scenarios, so we'll cover them at the end.
Cool. So we've got the old proposal editor. Those of you who use PI will know what that's about, and a new proposal editor, which you should also hopefully know what that's about. And they are quite different for how we deploy our jobs into XPM. So I'm going to touch on what we do, what each of those look like. The thing that's different about people who use Practice Ignition is that our services in Practice Ignition map to XPM Job Templates. So service, I'll show you an example, but a service might say quarterly base returns. We're going to do your quarterly base returns, and here's what we're going to charge you for that. That will deploy and match to an XPM Job Template, which has a series of tasks in it, and I'll show you some examples of that. Our invoices are deployed to Xero using a client order number or the proposal number that's embedded in the job. That's quite important. How that's different to the XPM Job Import is that we're going to populate a spreadsheet and import our jobs. We're going to do this once a year for the jobs that need it. Our XPM Job Template is a bundle of services, but because we're not using Practice Ignition, we need to set those up a bit differently, and I'm going to show you what those look like. And if you go to the website here, or the email I sent this morning, you'll find some of these templates, some examples we can look at together shortly. And our invoices are linked to jobs. That depends on the billing method, which we kind of touched on earlier. So cool. And lastly, XPM Recurring Jobs. Jobs create themselves. Awesome. You need to keep on top of them though, which is kind of annoying. You can't really do a big bang once a year and just go and update them all. It's not really the way they work. The XPM Job Template, no change, and Xero repeating invoices need to be pointed to that new job each year. So those of you that do repeating invoicing will know what that's about. But yeah, let's move on. Cool, let's have a look at Practice Ignition to get us started. If you don't use Practice Ignition and have no interest in using Practice Ignition in the future, you can relax for the next 10 minutes. Sweet. Those of you that are still here, you should know a bit about what this looks. This is our client list within Practice Ignition. What I don't have in this demo account is the old job rollover button, and some of you will because you've had that in the past, and you'll have old proposals set up that way. If you're using the old proposal generator and you want to continue using the old proposal generator, there'll be a rollover button up here, which you may or may not have used before. But that is probably the quickest way for you to bulk create a bunch of new engagements for the year ahead, distribute those engagements out to your customers, and then when they're accepted, deploy that to your XPM. So that is your way of getting those old proposal method engagements into your XPM. The cons of that are kind of fixed by the new proposal editor. What was always a problem with the old proposal editor was the timing of the issue of the engagement, the acceptance of the engagement, when the job got created, and then underlying all of that was the recurring invoicing, which was always happening as you went, and when those new invoices got pointed to the new engagement. So that's kind of been solved by the new proposal editor. And if you are using the new proposal editor, there's an important part you should know about. And it's in here, this is our client, and then here's all of our proposals. And just like the old one, you can reissue new proposals and reissue new engagements. But underlying all this, or independent if you like, is a workflow. And if you're not using it, you definitely want to be using this, because this is basically XPM Recurring Jobs, but way better and embedded in the proposal. So if you are using the new proposal editor and not the workflows, this is what you want to be doing. So you want to have a single workflow created per proposal. Here's an example of what a proposal would look like. Just open that up. Here's one I prepared earlier. I'll look at the summary. Actually, maybe I'll create a new one. Yeah, I will. Cool. I'll create a new proposal for this this client. And this is what the new proposal editor looks like. Great.
Reubs, if you are currently using the old proposal editor,
yep.
Would you recommend biting the bullet at some stage and moving everything over to the new proposal editor because of all the new features?
I would personally, yeah. I'm a fan of the old proposal editor. I think it does have its merits. You'll see when we come into building this that this can be quite overwhelming, especially when you just start out if you're used to the old one. But I do see a future where there isn't an old proposal editor. I think there's a reason why they've created a new one, and there will be a time in the future, even though it hasn't been announced, that the old one won't be available, I foresee. So probably better to embrace it, and particularly I think it is functionally superior. Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. So here we're going to create a proposal. We'll call this Annual Accounting Services 2024, for example. I'll skip through some of the more mundane stuff, but the parts you're going to want to know is recurring. I'm going to invoice this monthly. I'm going to add in my library of services, annual accounts, quarterly coaching or GST, and some quarterly coaching. It's going to come up with a bunch of pricing, which I can edit. Cool. payments. Yes, we're going to accept payment prior to starting. Awesome. Here's all my terms. Nothing exciting there. This is the bit you want to know about. I want to create one workflow per proposal. This is what it looks like. And so this is basically the XPM recurring job, but embedded in your practice ignition proposal. So here it's going to have a nifty name. It's going to know what you're doing. You can put in the category, and we'll touch on these in a little. These are your XPM job categories. Here's the budget, which it knows because it's PI and it has the pricing in it. You can put in your partner, so who the client is or the partner in your practice is who's preparing this, who the person is who's going to be delivering this work, and then you can also choose your staff if you know who's going to be doing this at that point. What's the important part here is that it knows which template's going to be applied, and that's in your settings. I'll just go back. I can't go back, can I? I'll show you that shortly. So I'll show you how these get pre-populated, but they're probably the most important part of the screen. The last thing you want to be doing is with this recurrence, just like our XPM recurring jobs, you're going to say, we're going to do this. I want you to create a new job for me every year. And I'm going to do that every 12 months. And it's going to be from proposal start, the job is going to be 12 months, or if you're using the in advance method, it's actually going to be 24. And you're going to repeat indefinitely. And what that's doing is independent of your payments and independent of your engagements, it's going to create these workflows for you into your XPM. The cool part about that is when it creates a new job for you in 2024, those 12 invoices you've collected for 2023, the 13th one is automatically going to know to go to the next one because it's always going to pick up the new job. Yeah, pretty clever, right? So if you're using the old proposal editor, you'll know how painful it was sometimes around syncing those correct invoices to the correct job. Yeah, that's not an issue anymore if you're using the new proposal editor.
Question, Reubs. So what you've done here is you've set this up for an advanced method type fixed price agreement, which means we're going to be billing for 12 months. The job will be open for the following 12 months to complete those annual financial statements and tax returns.
Correct. That's why I called this 2024. Yeah, because we would be collecting the money this year, basically, for that engagement. Yeah.
So you've put, so it's going to repeat every 12 months. What makes sense, we create a new job every 12 months. The duration of that job, that's the difference between the start and the due date would be 24 months. Where do we actually identify that we're going to bill for only 12 months for that engagement?
That's actually covered in a separate section. That's in the invoicing section.
Perfect. Okay, great.
So that's in the payments part back here.
Excellent. Yeah. So we want to ensure that
in services, it's recurring once a month.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'd set that up to only, so it's 12 months of billing, but a 24-month job. Because what we're in here,
correct.
And when we're looking at the automation, we're looking at where we're setting up our job details, but the invoicing, how long we invoice, is done back there in the services section.
Yep, that's right.
Yep,
cool,
fantastic.
And that's another one because in the old proposal editor, it was all in one place, and it was hard to make your delivery line up with the payments and the job deployment. So cool. Lastly, I made that a client billing job to make sure the invoice goes to this job. Sweet. There's some videos online which cover this in a lot more depth. So I'm just going to send this out. Send. I'll accept it on the client's behalf, and we should have a job deployed, which we can use later if we get a chance. Awesome. I'll just accept on the client's behalf. Call it a demo. Accept. Awesome. Very good. Look at this one. Schedule. Cool. So that's job number. This is probably the one I did earlier, job 1372. And if you look at this in the schedule here, still deploying at the moment. It's deploying 2024's job right now. But when that finishes spinning, you'll have another job number. So you can see how the jobs, when using the new proposal editor, are kind of independent. So if we click through to that, this is what it looks like when it arrives in your XPM. We've got our job. It's got our PI link. I did mine. The last one I did was for a different value. And yes, it's deployed the tasks that are relevant. And this is the part that I didn't get to show you earlier, but an important part to all of this is the library. So in your library of services, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody using PI, but you'll have a library of services. And what you want to have is you want to have a workflow template associated. And this is kind of getting into the guts of what we're talking about today. These workflow templates come to you from your XPM, and they say, what XPM job template do you want to apply to the jobs that have this service? And if you open up your
Just one thing on that, Reubs. What we're doing is we've got this the service. Sorry, you continue what you're doing. We'll go back to that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so here's our PI service for XPM Job Template NZ AU. So I'll just download this and you can do the same. Hopefully that opens up. There we go. I'll make that a bit bigger. When you're using Practice Ignition, your XPM Job Templates are a little bit different. They are based on services for that reason. So I'll show you an example. Here's an example of what a PI service might look like. Can you see that okay, Will?
I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
How's that?
That's better. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So a PI service might say quarterly BAS. We're going to do your quarterly BAS returns. I like to keep the XPM Job Template exactly the same, with the exact same name. It means I can one for one and visually see that, yep, I've got them all there. What that looks like at the XPM task is we have a task called BAS or BAS return, whatever language you want to use there. And what we use in the task label is the period that we're going to keep that for. And it's just handwritten. So what happens when we sell a service or have a proposal that's accepted, it will deploy this job template among any others. And with that job template, it will apply 4 tasks to the job with these kind of subtasks, these labels. So yeah, this is all available for download, and just it's not complete, obviously. It's a good starting point, but every practice offers a different range of services. So if we look at monthly BAS, similar sort of setup, company tax return, two tasks, each called company tax return, preparation and review. That's a common way people would break that time up. So this is what your XPM job templates look like if you're using Practice Ignition. It's all service to service. Contrast that to how this looks. Actually, we'll come to that when we do our job import. But yeah, are there any questions specific to this? This part of job templates, the PI services, perhaps? Will, in the chat?
What I was going to mention earlier, you've actually just covered, is in here, we've got a service name called annual accounts, and we've used the workflow template, which is a job template in XPM called annual accounts. Yes. Our advice is to not use multiple job templates for a service. To keep things really simple, your service name in PI should match to a job template in XPM, and that job template in XPM should have multiple tasks on it. That's how you keep things nice and clean.
Yeah, so this page here, under business settings, job settings, this page here should look identical to this page here. Mine doesn't because it's a demo. It's got lots of junk in it, but yeah, you get the idea, hopefully. Cool. Yeah. All right, we'll move back to the slides then, eh? Cool, old proposal, new proposal editor. As you would have seen when I set up that new proposal, there's a bunch of new stuff you can do in PI itself using the new proposal editor. And one of them is the budgets. Historically, you would have had to populate those yourself. That's annoying. PI does it for you because it knows what you're charging. You can assign job managers and partners within PI without having to go into XPM and wait for the job and do that as well. And lastly, the job estimated task times come from the XPM Job Template. That is when we're setting up these templates in your accounts, for example, we recommend putting in an estimated time, and that estimated time should be probably the minimum estimated time you would expect for that activity for a customer. It's always going to be different for the size for some activities and for some customers, but put in enough value. Any value is better than 0. Gives our job managers an opportunity to update it and for us to track time, actual time versus expectation. All right.
Before we move, there's a few quick questions here that we can answer very quickly. Can you import quotes to XPM from a CSV file? The answer is no, you cannot.
That's an easy answer.
Yeah. Can you add task start and due dates to a template? The answer also is no, but we'll do a webinar in the next month or so around scheduling your workflow in XPM. This is a different topic, but that's obviously you do your engagements. What we do is set up your jobs. The next part of the process is how do we schedule that work? So we should do a webinar very soon about how we do that. Can we create one job with multiple underlying tasks, e.g. annual service job with BAS tax? The answer to that is absolutely yes. So you want to think about your job as your engagement as a whole. So that engagement might have annual accounts, BAS returns, and coaching. That needs to be under one job, and that one job will have 3 services. Those 3 services map to 3 templates within XPM. Each of those templates will have multiple tasks on them. So yes, is the answer.
It does get confusing, but that is 100% correct. That's for the purpose of this webinar.
Yeah, and the other questions in there we'll answer at the end because some of them are a bit more complex.
Cool. Here's our 2023 job and our 2024 job, but I'll just show you, to show you that multiple task layer, what that looks like. So it's deployed based on the services I sold. It's deployed these 6 GST tasks, each with a subtask, April, May, June, July, etc. They've all got estimated times that have come from the template. We've got annual accounts preparation and review and a finalization step, because this practice likes to have a separate place to put that time, perhaps. So that's entirely up to you, and what a typical job would look like if you're using these bundled services with a monthly or quarterly or weekly fee. At the end of this year, traveling forward in time, we would expect, if we're using the in-period method, we'd expect 12 invoices sitting under here that have synced from our Xero Blue. They've been sent from PI to Xero Blue and across to XPM. And the way that happens is via the this number here. So you don't really need to worry about that if you're using Practice Ignition. That's the magic.
So when Practice Ignition creates the invoice in Xero Blue, it'll create a reference on that invoice. That reference will be identical to that client order number. And then overnight, XPM is going to check Xero Blue to see if it has any invoices with that reference. When it finds it, it creates the invoice in this job for us as an interim. So it's really seamless. It works really nicely.
One of the things we didn't get to touch on there was pricing of services. Those of you that are using link reporting will already be familiar. Actually, let me see. Do I have it open? Should do. Somewhere in here. I think it's in here, that's why. When you're reissuing your engagements each year or creating your new jobs, it is a good time to be reviewing your pricing. So yeah, I'll show you the best report for using that a bit later if we get some time. Cool. Let's move on to this again. So that's PI. If you've been sleeping for the last 10 minutes, now is the time to wake up. We're moving on past PI. We're moving into the guts of what you do if you're not doing this. And a lot of practices are doing this for some of their jobs, but not all of them. So what do we do instead? Well, we use the XPM Job Import Template. And fortunately, I provide that for you. It's under here, XPM Job Import Template. It's available in the XPM help. You can download it from the xero.support or support.xero.com or whatever, or download it from here. It's not going to change anytime soon, I expect. But it's basically an empty spreadsheet. I'm going to show you what we do with it. Here's what it looks like. Cool. I've put in some examples. Basically, this is a CSV template that with the specific headers. Zoom in a bit? Yeah. This is a CSV template that has very specific headers in it. And provided you don't mess with them or save it in another format, this will import successfully. And I'm going to talk to how we do that. I'm going to show you an example of how we do that. You'll notice in the example I provided you, I put in some in the description here. This would normally be a blurb around the services you're offering, but I've used it to describe the kind of engagement we're using and how that impacts the duration. As you can see in advance, there's a longer duration. Sweet. So you're going to populate this yourself, and I'm going to show you how. So I'll move that away. Cool. Now, yeah, should we talk about these common faults? Yeah, let's do that. Sweet. So if you come back to ignoring these PI templates now on our events page, come back to the XPM Job Import or XPM Job Import example job templates, AU or NZ. Download the one that's most relevant to you. I'll download the Australian one, because I did say earlier that if you're not using Practice Ignition, your job templates look different. And here's an example. Sweet. Cool. So here's an example of what an XPM, that one's not quite populated correctly, that's all right. An XPM job template might look like if you're an Australian-based customer. What we have here is what we're doing, and it's basically every possible combination of the frequency and services that we offer. So you're going to populate this yourself to determine what your template's going to look like. So this one here is going to be called 2023 Annual Accounts Services. And for this customer, we're doing quarterly BAS and tax returns. That's it. So that's its own template. That's quite different, as you can see, to having a template for quarterly BAS and a template for tax returns. You're going to have one template with that bundle of services. So when you're in your XPM, if you come back to PI service, I thought I had another one. Bear with me a second. Cool. Monthly bears. Yeah, maybe I didn't do it for that. That's all right. Yeah, so what you want to do for yourself is download this template and come up with the services you offer. I've left a few blank ones here. You're going to be offering different services. Enter in a frequency that you offer that service, and then come up with a unique name. And you're going to create these as unique job templates within your XPM. So here's an example of what that looks like. We'll take this one. Under business and settings, you're going to, under job settings, you're going to create a job template. Cool. One of the weaknesses of using the job import template is that it's not service to template. There's not multiple services that we import against these jobs. It's a single job with a single template. So this template is going to be called annual accounting services. Now, yeah, we can leave the year in there or not. Quarterly bears and tax. I'm going to put that to my fixed price agreements. In this template, I'm going to have a series of activities, and it's going to be determined by this grid here. So that's quarterly, so I'm going to have 4 of them. That's annual, so I'm going to have 1 or 2 if we're going to have a review stage. So that might look a bit like this. I'll do July to September. 2 hours, save. Cool. I'll just add a couple more and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, July, August, September, October, November, December.
Well, you do that, Reubs. I'll just mention that this is a huge benefit of using Practice Ignition over using XPM alone. With Practice Ignition, you have the ability to put multiple templates against an engagement. So we can have annual accounts, BAS return, and management accounts, 3 different templates. And then when we create that engagement in Practice Ignition, it puts those templates against that single job. With using XPM, like Reubs is doing here, we need to create quite complex template names. And the reason is we have to have all of those tasks on a single template. So if we have annual accounts, BAS returns, and management accounts, we need to create a single template with all of those tasks in it. So as you can imagine, the more variables you have in those engagements, that just creates another and another and another template you need to set up. So yeah, huge benefit of using PI over using XPM alone.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, it bought me some time. All right. This is an example of what your XPM template would look like. And as Will said, they get more complex, the more services, the more different flavors of services that you offer, all the different combinations. So here we've got BAS and annual accounts all on the same template, because when we import our job, we're going to have to tell XPM which template do you use. And you only have 1 box to do that with, not 5 or 10 like you have with PI, basically. So we'll save that. Cool.
Really good question here, Reubs, from Kanina. She's asked, where are the templates in XPM? So could you quickly show where you clicked to arrive at where you are?
Yeah, starting from your dashboard, go to business, and then settings, job settings. They're very well hidden. Job template. Cool, and this is really somewhere where you want to spend a bit of time and thought. Cool. If you're using multiple methods to deploy your jobs, both PI and a job import, you will have 2 different styles of template. You'll have the service-based ones, which connect to your PI, and you'll have these more elaborate type ones that we're going to use for job imports. Yeah. So you see a mix here. Cool. Does that answer that question? Awesome.
Yep, all good. Thanks, Reubs.
Cool.
Can you zoom in on that spreadsheet, please, Reubs? We've just had a question. See if you can zoom in a bit further, or full screen your spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. How's this?
Much better.
Yes, this is just to illustrate kind of the thinking that goes into preparing those templates and identifying how many different ones you have. You'll see how this becomes a bit more relevant later. Those should actually stay the same. Cool. All right, let's move on. That's kind of the tricky bit, I guess, is coming up with your templates. From there, it's all very easy, because we're going to prepare our list. This is our job template that we used earlier. This is like the default XPM, how to import your job template. And I'll just talk through, make sure I've got some slides for it. Let's have a look. Cool. that's the common faults. All right, let's do it together. So in here, we're going to put in a job name. So we can determine the job name when we bulk import our job templates. And I'd recommend something generic, but you do want to have a year in there. It's quite important that you and your staff understand for what period. When I see a year, 2023, does that mean the work is for 2023, or does that mean the financial year ending 2023? Doesn't matter which option you choose, provided everyone understands what that means. Cool. So that's going to be your job name. And here's an example. It might be annual accounting services for the year ended 2023, or annual accounting services for the year of 2023. Very, very subtly different, but important. Cool. We're going to have our client list, and you should be able to get that either from your XPM now, or you can maybe export all the jobs you've done over the previous 12 months. The start date, once you've determined your invoicing method from our different flavors of fixed price agreements, that'll allow you to understand with what is the period that I'm opening these jobs for. If I'm using the in-period method, then I'm going to want my jobs open, and I'm in Australia. I'm going to want them open from the 1st of July through to probably a bit past the end of June, actually, because I'm going to need to do the annual accounts at some point. So I'm collecting invoicing for that period there, and I'm going to be doing the annual accounts after that period. So that might actually be a bit longer. Yeah. Cool. The importance of the due date is, I think it's just important that people understand when am I likely to see the end of this job? And that would be that after all the invoicing is collected and all the time has been added. In the description, you don't need to worry about that. So those are kind of the tricky bits. With the job number, I'll show you this just in case you're not aware. We're often going to want to pick up the next job number. It's nice when our job numbers are sequential. So we're going to go into our jobs list here, sort by number, scroll to the bottom. Oh no, this demo's like got lots of stuff in it. Here we go. Okay, here we go. We've got lots of different numbers. You're going to have hopefully one sequence with one prefix and one set of numbers. I'll just find the end of the J's. Hold on. Cool. Here's the end of our J's. Yours will look a bit like this. J001250. That's the most recent job created by XPM. When we're importing our jobs, we're going to want this to be like that. 1251, the next number in the sequence. Cool. So we can drag that down. That's how you can do that. I've told you where your client's from. These will all have the same name. Most of the time. Cool. Our start dates and due dates will probably be the same. Now here's the tricky bit. Once you've kind of got your client list, you've identified your job numbers, you've given them a name, selected the correct date. What we need to do is put in here XPM Job Template, XPM Job Category. Now I wish we could import these. That's why I didn't include them in the import file. I wish you could fill these out, import it in, and that would be the end of it. No, unfortunately, what we need to do now is for each client, identify the name of the template being applied. So for Alpha Pty Limited, I know that they do annual accounts and I do a quarterly BAS for them. And so the template that I want applied when I import that is going to look like this. So I would take my job template. I'm going to take my name. So it tells me which one I'm applying. Cool, that one there. I might make it a link. Here we go. A special text. Great. In the XPM job category, probably don't have time to get into categories too much, but if you offer fixed price agreements, you want to have a separate category. That's the short story. Fixed price. So this is kind of the bulk of the work, is lining up our clients with the bundle of services that they're offering. So the homework required to achieve this is to have all of your job templates already set up in a way that you want them. Cool. So you should have a long list of these, all with a variety of flavors, a long list of these, all with some variety as well. We might have some billable fees in there. Compliance, or whatever your job categories might look like. Cool. That's the tricky bit, I guess. Any questions specific to populating this spreadsheet? Will?
No, I suppose the next thing is, once we've done all of that,
what do you do?
What do you do? That's the next step, right?
Cool. All right. Now, yeah, as I was saying, I wish we could just import it as it is, but XPM doesn't like these fields and it doesn't trust us to get these names exactly correct. So what we have to do is we have to come up with some other ones. If we go to File New, or actually download a fresh template from the website. Maybe try to do that one a bit better. Let's download a fresh template, one that's not all muddy. Cool. Here's our fresh one. We can delete out all that. I've already pre-populated my job numbers, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take every kind of bundle of the same flavor, if you like. These are all the same flavor, but imagine that this was just quarterly BAS, for example.
You could sort the spreadsheet. Think of this as like your
I would sort, template. Yeah, that's a good point.
This is your master template. Then we're going to take all of these and we're going to, based on each flavor, we're going to put them into different CSVs. There might be like
that's exactly what we're about to do.
Yeah, sorry. Jumping ahead.
Great, man, great. So sort by job template and then by job category. That would be a good way to go. And then they don't really have to be alphabetical. It's fine. Cool. Now that I've got it sorted, you're going to have some common bundles. And we're going to take each common bundle. Here I've only got one. It's probably not a great use of my time, but I'm going to copy that into my empty template, which I just minimized, I think. This one here. Cool. That's it. Now, I'll come back to the common faults, but this is one of them, is the dates. Often when we're copying and pasting. Oh, sorry, here we go. Thank you. Awesome. Often when we're copying and pasting, Excel likes to shorten our date format. This will cause you errors when you import it. So with our dates, they must be DD, year. So what that looks like is format cells there. I'm going to go to number, date, and it's going to be DD, month, year, exactly like that. That's really important. Cool. I'm now going to save that. Save as, and I'm going to call it Xpm Job Import Template. I actually just like to give it the Xpm Job Template name, which in this case was, I might call it Xpm Job Import, and you can give it an Xpm template name, just because you're going to end up with like 20 of them. So give them a nice tidy name. Cool. Importantly, I'm going to save that as a CSV. Very good. That's fine. Great. Now, you're going to have 20 of those saved. And what do you do with them? You go to Business and Settings. We're going to go to Import down here. Great. Where it says File Type, you're going to select Generic Job. File Format, you're going to change that to comma separated. And click Next. And here's where you're going to see why we've had to go through the hassle of having a separate column and then breaking it into 25 other spreadsheets, because it's going to take everything in my spreadsheet and it's going to give it one state, one job state. So I'm going to say, well, what job state do I want these jobs imported as? And hopefully you've got something like not in or waiting to be scheduled, or you have some starting state that isn't in progress. That's where I'd put it. The category, that's why we had a filter or a sort on our category, because we can only apply one category to everything that's in this list. And in this example, I've forgotten what I saved it as. I think it was Billable Fees compliance. And lastly, the template. I can only apply one template to all these jobs that I'm importing. There might be 40 of them. And here is where having a nice tidy list of templates that is exactly match the file name that you just saved really helps. This is the template I'm going to apply to all these jobs. Last step, I'm going to choose the file. Where did I put it? There we go. That one there. Open. And then you cross your fingers, because the error messages are painful if you get them. I'll talk about those in a moment. Import. Great. Job number's already been allocated. So if you've done the job number part correctly, I just picked some random numbers, but yep, that you won't have that error. It'll say one row imported successfully.
Do you want to quickly just put in a random job number so this works, Reubs?
Yeah, let's do that, I'm going to call it WM for Will McTavish. We'll say that again. Yes. I wouldn't recommend fiddling with the prefixes normally, but just so we can see that this works. That's what it looks like when it's successful. What an amazing success message. The error messages are even worse, but yep, one row imported. And what I like to do here is I like to count I like to know how many I'm expecting, because if you've got 40 names in this list and it says 38 successfully imported, you should be asking, oh, where are the other two? Yes, it'll normally provide you an error, but the errors aren't great, which is why I want to talk to you some of these here. These are the common faults that occur. And so you might want to watch this recording later when you get to this step. The most common fault that I come across in order of commonality is duplicate clients. If you try to import jobs into your XPM and you have two clients with the exact same name, it won't like it. It won't know which one to associate it with. So a good thing to do prior to doing this is to come into your client list and search for those duplicates. Instead of scrolling through it, a quicker way I find is to go to your settings. This is all my secrets now. This is how we make so much money, eh, Will? This is why you're doing a webinar in your garage. All right, generic clients. So sorry, I meant to pass it a bit quick. General settings. Export. So I'm going to export out my client list, basically. We're going to choose generic clients. Don't worry about the dates or anything like that. You just click export. It's going to give you all the clients that are in your XPM. I wish there was a magic deduplicate button in XPM, but there's not. So here's what we have to do instead. That's going to open up a file. Where is it? Over here. We'll make it a bit bigger for you. This is your client list. I go over the name. I go, where is it? Conditional formatting, highlight, duplicate values, just in case you didn't know where that button was. It's different depending on your version of Excel, but yep, that's roughly where it is. Conditional formatting, highlight, duplicate values, make them red. Cool. Here. Awesome. Now I found one. This is kind of like tidy up, I suppose. Come into my XPM basket case. I've got two. Now, there was a time, not that long ago, where you could merge them within XPM. Options, merge. That doesn't exist anymore. Pretty sure. Actually, hold on, give me a second. Options, merge. Yes, so it's a really in a really weird spot. Options, merge. You see the pop-up I just made disappear? That's the one that actually tells you how to do this properly. But if you try to merge this, it's going to delete one and merge all the job invoicing history with the other one, which sounds really good. Except we don't, XPM doesn't like you doing this anymore. Mine doesn't connect, this XPM is not connected to a 0HQ, but yours will be. So that is 0HQ is how you merge your contacts now, and how you merge your clients now. So you'd have to open up your 0HQ, find basket case and merge them there, just in case, yeah, that's how that's done. So yours won't look like what I just did. That's so you want to do this import as just a bit of it like a tidy up. Find any other pink ones? No, cool, great. That's going to save you a lot of dramas later. What's the next most common error I find? Client name not found. Import a job for a client that doesn't exist. Yeah, obviously that's not going to work. So make sure the client list that you've exported. That's why I like to export it out to populate my spreadsheet in the first place. They're going to match exactly. Cool. File format, make sure it's a CSV. You can't import a Excel or any other format. Date format, DDMM year. Job number not unique. We all saw that together. Make sure your job numbers are unique. Yep. Other faults that aren't like specific to the file, this will be, if you get those right, the file will succeed. But do make sure that in the job name and in the job due dates, it's quite clear to your staff around for what period are we talking about. Yeah, because that will cause confusion. It's quite common to have multiple jobs open for the same client at the same time, particularly when you're using the in advance method. You've got next year's engagement, the 2024 job open right now. We don't want people putting time to that right now because we're not doing that work right now. We're collecting invoicing for it. We want them put into the other one. And how are they going to tell the difference? Because it's going to be in the job name. This is for the 2023 year. You're doing the badge return for the 2023 year, for example. Not applying a job template at all. That will also mainly talking at the import phase. Yeah, I think I say over here, no, once you've imported your jobs, there's no bulk update. That's really annoying. That's why this is kind of high risk, I suppose, or something you want to be very methodical in doing. If you don't apply a job template when you import, then you're going to end up with a bunch of empty jobs. You're going to have to go and apply those templates manually. Yeah, make sure you've got XPM job categories, particularly if you have fixed price agreement jobs. You want to filter those out because typically they would have negative WIP, and you want to kind of look. Sometimes you want to look at just the positive WIP in your business to see, how long does it take us to turn our time into money. And lastly, have a starting state. Don't import all your jobs into in progress and just leave them there forever. It's not going to help your team. Sweet. Cool. We've got 5 more minutes. Probably don't have time to cover this. Let me see. Things you can't do. I will just quickly touch on one thing since I've already got the file open. This export we did. Now is actually a really good time to be looking at these 2 columns here. And so what you might do would be, you've got your client list in your XPM, you're going to sort, and you might sort by account manager. This will be the default partner for that client. And you basically want to have somebody associated with every client. All these clients here, they've got no partner. Oh, sorry, that's heaps of them, but you get the idea. Let's go back up. Better. Cool. All these clients here don't have a partner associated. We want to have a partner associated. And it's really easy to fix this by filling in the client name, the partner name exactly, and dragging that down. We can do that at the same time, populate a default job manager. That's one that is not as essential because job managers can change year to year. So if it's empty, don't worry too much about it. But if you often do have the same people responsible for this, delivering the same work each year, which is more common in smaller practices, do the same. Copy the job manager exactly as it appears in your XPM. Once you've done that, you can save. Client 28, come back to your XPM and import the same place, just like we did the export, but going to import this time. Generic client, CSV, next. And you're going to update existing. That's important. Choose the file you just saved. This might have a lot of errors, but I'll cross my fingers. What that's just done is bulk update all our partners, and that's going to help us. That's something I'd recommend doing prior to importing your jobs as well. That means that your jobs, when they do deploy, will have a partner associated with them, and that'll help us later when we're doing our reporting. Cool. So client partner, client job manager, estimated times on job templates. We've kind of talked about that. Put a time in your templates. Don't leave it at 0. Things you can't do that I get asked a lot. Can I bulk update job partner and job manager at the same time as I do my job import? No, I wish. There are other ways we do that. If you want help with that, contact us. I'll show you. Or maybe we'll do a future webinar on that. Can I assign staff when I do my XPM job template? No, unfortunately not. PI can. We kind of saw an example. We saw an example of that earlier. Can I update job budgets? No. If you import your jobs this way, you need to populate your budgets. And lastly, can I apply multiple job templates like in Practice Ignition? No, you can't do that either. Can I bulk update my jobs once they're imported? No. Cool. So recurring jobs, one last method. This is the 3rd method, and it's pretty much the same as the bulk import, except there's no import. There's a whole separate area in your XPM under jobs, right on the right-hand side called recurring, where you set up these recurring jobs. And they're pretty much the same as the template. It asks the same questions on this frequency, on this next date for this client, deploy a single template for X number of months and assign it. This one you can actually assign to staff, so that's a bit better, I suppose. But the downside with recurring jobs is that they take a bit to keep on top of. And so setting them up, you can't bulk update these. They do require a bit of maintenance, but they do also save you a bit of time. So yeah, that's something to be mindful of. And you don't have to go through this import process once a year, which is nice. Cool. I think that's about all the time we have. Should we try to answer some questions, and if we get time, we'll cover some other nice stuff.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think in terms of preference, I think Practice Ignition is the easiest in terms of maintenance and the automation available. So PI is your best option. Second best option is your CSV import, and third option would be your recurring jobs. Yeah, probably a bit more time setting each of the, like PI takes more time to set up, but once it's set up, it's running really nicely, working all the way down to recurring jobs. Quite easy to set up, but then there's a lot of maintenance ongoing. So yeah, hope that's useful as a quick summary. Should we rip into some of these questions?
Yeah, I don't know how much time we'll get, but we'll do our best.
We'll see how we go. Should we work our way up? Does PI integrate with HubSpot? Not that I'm aware of, Reubs.
Not that I'm aware of, no. It is, I think it is quite a big hole in the Xero ecosystem at the moment. I haven't seen a good CRM that also does proposals, because a proposal is only halfway through your sales process, isn't it? Prior to that, you've met a client or they've come to you. Yeah, or they found you via marketing. Yeah, there's nothing out there that really connects the two, I find.
Yeah, cool. Should you delete your recurring jobs before importing? Yes, you don't want to create duplicates. That's really important.
Yes, for the same client, obviously. Yeah, you don't.
We've got 8 in the Q&A as well. There's a lot of questions here.
Maybe start with the Q&A since.
Yeah, should we do that? Yeah, we'll start with the Q&A and then we'll work up through the questions. Do you agree with the opinion promoted by some accounting industry consultants that the level of that recording time is old school and no longer relevant?
Oh, man. Well, it's time to
that. Look, even if you're not billing the time, you still want to capture the work in progress. The work in progress is a representation of the value created on that engagement. The billing is separate. So if you have $8,000 of time and you have $6,000 of invoicing, you have a $2,000 write-off. That gives us interesting insight into inefficiencies in our practice. So capturing time allows us to see where overruns are occurring and where efficiency is being lost.
I find these things have seem to go in cycles, and I would say Australia and New Zealand would be probably ahead of accounting in the world. There are people over in Australia, in the US and the UK who think they are, and they are saying don't do timesheets. And in 10 years, 5 years, probably 5 years time, we'll find them saying the opposite.
Yeah. How do you know where your write-offs are? How do you know who's struggling? There's so many things you can't answer if you're not capturing your WIP. So
they confuse. To give them credit, they'll often invoice on the hourly rate basis over there. So they confuse time with invoicing, which are two very different things. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have time
for a long time.
We should do another webinar on this one.
Yeah. Cool. So what is the best way to do a quarterly BAS job using PI? We currently have an open job for the whole year, which includes 4 tasks each quarter, but it would be great if we could have 4 jobs. 1 for each quarter, so they can be scheduled and closed and done. Cool. So this is sort of like taking from job into Reubs. Do you want to answer that one?
You can do that, provided you cannot do that if you offer fixed fees or a monthly fee or weekly fee or anything like that, because that breaks the golden rule of associating our revenue with our time. If you charge a fixed fee, if you charge a fixed fee per BAS, you can do that. You can have a separate job per BAS and close it out and do your fixed fee. If you charge hourly for your BAS, you can do that as well. But if you're charging a fixed monthly fee of $400, you can't have four BAS return jobs, because that's going to attract time, which will have no revenue. The people who work on those things are going to look really useless because there's no revenue associated with it.
The golden rule, invoices and time must be on the same job, because when we finish a job, we do a WIP wash up. That's where our revenue is apportioned to our time and cost, and that's where we can see our write-ups and write-offs. If we have 4 jobs with invoicing sitting on 1 job and time across 4 jobs, when we do our wash up, 1 job's got a huge write-up and we write all the time off on that other job. So really important that we keep our revenue and our time in the same job. Cool. Job templates are, hey, Jason. Job templates are set up when the client accepts the proposal. What is the best way to capture the time against the client if the job is not set up, i.e. Engagement preparation? So I suppose what we could do is we could, we're looking into like general, this is like a job separate to that annual engagement. So you may want to have a job that remains open where you capture all of your general time. Your
like relationship time, maybe you might call it, or account management. I would typically call it a non-billable activity.
If it is billable, however, you put that into a billable job, and then it's really important that we do monitor our WIP very carefully on those jobs. Because that's where you can end up storing a lot of timesheets, and your WIP balance gets 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, 400 grand. You get a whole lot.
They are a black hole of
So
people love to put time there, even if it's related to a job. They love to put their time there. So there aren't a lot of accounting practices that are capturing that time. To be fair, a lot of them would put it to an internal admin sales activity. And put a note in around who they're meeting or what they're doing.
Is it possible? Is it possible to export a list of all jobs, for example, for financial year 2022 that show the XPM Job Templates name for it using the financial year 23 job import. Not that I don't think you can export
the job template name isn't a field. Yeah, it's not a field. Once it's applied, it's gone. Yeah, you can export job name, and often, depending on how the job was created, the job name will be the same as the template name, but not always, eh? So nah, that's a short answer there.
Yeah. You could look at the tasks on that job and then look at the relationship with those tasks and what that job is. That's an option.
Yep.
Cool. If we don't want to use recurring jobs, can you run a report showing all jobs for the past year, for example, with the job template? I think it's the same question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no report that will show you the jobs and the associated template, unfortunately. Can you go back a couple of slides? Sorry.
Sorry, mate. This is we'll put this up on our events page. You can watch that.
Where are you going to cover tracking WIP throughout the year? Where are you going to cover tracking WIP throughout the year? We're going to do another webinar about WIP tracking and all that sort of thing.
That will be our next big one.
Well, basically everything that we've got in our book, we want to cover as a webinar, in a webinar. So managing WIP on fixed price agreement jobs, just managing WIP in general, scheduling your workflow, all of these things we're going to look at covering in upcoming webinars. Would that mean having to do 4 PIs for them? So I think that relates to our first question, or our second question. So yeah, if you are billing over a 12-month period for those 4 engagements, they'd need to sit under one job. But if you're going to bill them independently, they can be 4 different jobs. Again, I think that comes down to a scheduling question rather than, it's more of a scheduling thing, because you're more worried about 4 jobs creates 4 workflows and it's easier to see. You've got more visibility across the jobs. Our advice is to look at thinking of your jobs as an engagement, and the tasks represent the actual workflow itself. And that's where using something like FYI is really good.
FYI is kind of the only app out there that does that lets you achieve both good workflow and good reporting. Because
we also have some resources around using a task allocation report in XPM to actually get visibility across the tasks that each of your team members have been allocated.
We didn't get into any link reporting, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Come and see us if you want to see some good reports. But
cool. So those are the Q&A questions. Let's have a quick look at the chat. Can reoccurring invoices that pull through from Blue Zero to XPM be applied against certain tasks? No. So the invoices that are raised in Zero Blue, they're going to arrive against the job within XPM, and that job is going to have a bunch of tasks on them. So when we do our WIP wash up, where we go remove from invoice list, that should say WIP wash up, but it doesn't. It says remove from invoice list. That button creates a WIP wash up where we take all the revenue and it's assigned against all the time and cost on the job. So it first apportions to our disbursements or our costs. What's left over gets apportioned across all of our time, and that's going to be done portioned based on the billable value of those timesheets. So if we've got a lot of WIP on one task and a very small on the other task, it's going to proportionally be distributed against those tasks. So the answer is no, but the WIP wash-ups do work really well as long as we have our time and our invoices in the same job. That really is the golden rule here. Time and invoices need to be on the same job. Cool. Link is awesome. Highly recommend. Thanks, George.
Oh, thanks, George.
Here we go. Do you mean you wouldn't do a WIP wash up across jobs? That's what we are saying. Now, there is a method of doing that. You can raise a nil invoice. We generally try to avoid that. There's a million different ways to use XPM. What Reubs and I've done is we've picked what we believe is the best process. We've written a book about it. So in the way we advise is not to do a nil invoice for our WIP wash ups across multiple jobs. We prefer to keep your jobs keep all your invoicing and your time in one place, which obviously does create challenges around your scheduling, but we do have ways of managing that. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the next question here. Does a way exist to have individual budgets as part of the import rather than a templated fixed amount?
We can't import budgets. PI does, obviously, as we showed. One of the questions I'd sometimes get is, can you assign a task level budget? The answer is yes for time, but no for dollars. There is no task level dollar budget in XPM. There's no box for it. But this is my time. I'll
do a shout out for link reporting now.
Link reporting does.
Link reporting does. So what we do in link reporting, what we do is we take the budget that's entered against the budget field in the job, and then we apportion that budget against all of the disbursements and then against all of our time on those tasks. So there's an algorithm we've written that basically takes that budget and beautifully apportions it across the whole job. That way you can track your remaining budget at a task level using the open job report.
Yep.
So there is a way. If you use link reporting, the answer is yes.
I was actually going to demonstrate that, but we ran out of time. Yeah, because a big challenge with all of this, when you've got fixed fees and lots of tasks, is how do I know when things are going well or not until, between now and the end of the year? And that's how, basically.
Yeah, we'll do another webinar covering link reporting and how to manage overruns and at-risk jobs and all those sorts of things. We've got some really, really nice reports that manage that. Right, when creating a task in XPM and then break down to labels, etc., months, can you copy the to-do items created in a prior task to do? No, is the answer. You can't copy the to-do items over, but you can copy the template itself,
yes.
Which will give you a really good starting point. So if you need to create a whole lot of templates that are very similar, the best thing to do is copy the template and adjust. Cool. Do you advise that the error clients should always be merged or deleted and never archived? Do you advise that the error clients, the duplicate clients, should always be merged and deleted, never archived?
It actually does archive it. Yeah, it says delete. It doesn't. It archives it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. We're actually getting through these questions, all right? I'm answering them really quickly, so I hope that's all right with everyone. I noticed that with PI, if you want to bill one, this is a really good question from Ryan. I knew there's going to be a tricky one coming through, and here it is. I noticed with PI, if you want to bill one entity in a group for the whole group, there is one option to add multiples to the same template to the one proposal. Have you noticed this? If so, what situation would you recommend this? I.e. there is one trading entity and multiple investment entities that are getting billed under one job, say the trading entity. You can add multiple annual account services templates in the workflow PI. Cool, I understand the question. Do you want me to field it, or Reubs, do you want to grab this one?
You can do this one, mate.
Cool. Right, so this comes back to our golden rule. Time and invoices need to remain on the same job. So if we do have this trading entity and then we have property entities, if all of the accounting fees are being billed under the main entity, under that situation, you would use a proposal that rolls it into one, because that one proposal is going to create one job with one set of billing, and then you'd use your tasks or your task labels to identify the different entities to do the work. Now, if you are billing separate entities, in that situation, you would create separate proposals. I know that creates challenges with getting proposals accepted and entering payment details and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, if they have three entities that they're billing separately, they need to have three credit cards, or they need to come out different bank accounts. So it really comes down to how the client is going to pay. If the main entity is going to pay for all three entities, then we're going to journal that fee manually across the other two entities when we're doing our accounting work. Great, we can bill it under one entity. But if we want to keep it nice and clean, the better thing to do is have the main trading entity pays $8,000, and then we have $1,000 and $1,000 for the other two entities, for example. So it does come down to how that engagement is going to bill. Yeah, I was going to say my preference, but both work. But as long as we don't have all billing go to one entity, and then we have our time for the other two entities go to two different jobs, because we're going to have big write-offs or 100% write-offs on those two other entities, and we're going to probably end up with a write-up on the trading entity. But as long as the billing and the time remain in the same place, we're going to be fine. Hope that answered that okay. Cool. I've answered a lot of these. So if you have multiple tasks under one job, how does the income and time allocated to the correct department, tax, accounting, payroll? That's a really good question. So that's where I suppose we're looking at task revenue reporting. Right, so we're looking at the profitability at a task level. Link reporting would be your answer there. Link reporting gives the ability to run revenue reports at a task level. So when you do that wash up, because you remember your revenue is being assigned to a job, and when you do that wash up, it's going to take that revenue and it's going to allocate it to the time on that job, and that time is assigned to a task, right? So you can see if there's a write-off on this timesheet, that write-off also occurred on that task, which gives us the ability to report on write-offs at a task level. Really, really cool report. The WIP movement report by task, really, really powerful. So being able to see where your write-offs are occurring at a task level. So the short answer for that is your reporting comes from link reporting if you want to go down that path of looking at that. But yes, we can do it. And don't worry about trying to split your invoices over different departments. It all comes out in the wash, and it's available in link reporting as a report. And you could probably, if you're really good at Excel, you might be able to put together a pivot table that will give you that information. Is there a workflow for creating a job, then tasks, etc. between PI XPM? Is there a workflow for creating a job, then tasks? Don't quite understand the question. I'm sorry.
No, I need to flick us an email. No.
Yeah. What have we got? So we have tasks as people to be able to achieve write-offs by person. Can this be achieved in changing? Right. Really good question. Reubs, I know you're passionate about this. I'll let you.
Oh, yeah, I see this a lot, but normally in like architecture and engineering, to be fair. It's not that common in accounting, but I can see why and how you've done what you've done. You would have a lot of issues with things like scheduling and knowing what needs to be done on a job. So yeah, I would recommend having tasks as services. If you're using Practice Ignition, obviously you're going to need to anyway. So yeah, I would keep the timesheet has the who in it anyway, you know.
And what's really exciting about that question, however, is that you are interested in write-offs by person. Jump on a trial link reporting. We have insane reports around team and write-offs and things. They're really, really good. And you can break it out by annual accounts, the actual task they're working on. And we take the person that worked on that task and the write-offs assigned to that person. And we give you this beautiful like productivity, write-offs, average hourly rates, ROIs, all of that in one report with drill downs and things. It's really cool.
Yeah, we'll show you what's possible and how you might get there. And you can decide if that's something you want.
And if you want to do that transition, that's where Reubs can help you out with that transition as well.
It's all part of the service here.
Yeah. We create one job with multiple underlying tasks. Can we create one job with multiple underlying tasks? Absolutely. Yeah, that is the way you want to do it. Absolutely. Again, the challenge is around capacity planning, but we have a solution for that, which we'll cover in another webinar. Or if you go to the support link, what's our Link Academy, linkacademy.com, and then our support articles and search capacity planning. We've got some really good articles on how we manage that. Can you import quotes? No, I've answered that. So in your new proposal for the following year, say for 2025, would you need to create a new workflow in PI for the 2025 proposal or not, because you have created the reoccurring workflow?
Great question. Only if the services have changed. That's it.
That's where that rollover button comes into it. So you can go roll over and it moves everything forward, update the date or update that year that you've put in the name. And then it's so yeah, the rollover in PI. PI is awesome, to be honest. Like if you're going to be, I'd look at PI. It's really good for managing deploying engagements. So yeah, it's going to work really well for that recurring workflow. So once you've set it up, roll over, make a few adjustments, and away you go. It's a lot easier than the other two methods. Cool. How do you manage scope changes and fee increases for reoccurring jobs? Reubs, you dealt with this. I'm chucking this at you now.
So the next year there's more, maybe more entities, or those entities have changed in their nature, maybe in their volume or variety or complexity. We need to change either what we're doing for somebody or the price of what we're doing for somebody. Using the Practice Ignition new proposal editor, you would issue a new proposal. Your workflow can stay the same, provided it's the same stuff you're doing. But as the previous person was asking, if we're actually doing a different variety of stuff, you'll need to have update that workflow to have the new things that you need to do for that person. If you're not using Practice Ignition, you would need to just apply a new template. So you know how we had that list of all our clients and we assigned some future job numbers for them, and we wrote down the new templates. We'd have to either create or apply a different template to that customer that would reflect the new things we had to do for that person. Yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Vicky's got a really good question. I use month-year functions in recurring jobs. So will that be able to come through in the workflow in PI? Unfortunately not, no. That is a really, really cool functionality that's not available in PI at the moment. I think we've suggested that to them at some stage. I'm not sure where that is in the pipeline, but that would be really cool, because as I mentioned just in my previous answer, is you need to manually update the year on your job names when you do your rollovers. But if you used that month year function, that would be amazing, but unfortunately not available at this stage. That's probably a tag on to the previous, right. So have you seen a hybrid method? If you have, Ryan's got the tough questions, eh? Have you seen a hybrid method? If you have a job where you're billing a catch-up invoice, fixed fee on completion of a job, but say starting a billing halfway through the year. My last webinar covers this in detail. Yeah, so
it's really common. Yeah, because the chances of people meeting us on the first day of the financial year is pretty slim. We normally meet people and bring people on all the way through the year. So there are a few different methods of starting that first job, and it depends very much around the time of the year they meet you and what needs to be done when you
what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So generally, what would you do if you're meeting someone halfway through the year? Let's say, so halfway through the year and they haven't done this year's accounts, you'd usually do those on a quoted or a time and cost basis. You go, cool, we're going to put you on a fixed fee agreement going forward, but we still need to do this year's accounts. So we're going to bill you as a separate engagement for last year's work, and then we're going to put you on a fixed price agreement. Now, if they are on the in advance method, we would then bill from the start of the financial year up to today's date, and then they go on a recurring fee going forward, or we charge them a higher fee for those 6 months to account for the 6 we've missed. That would be the in advance method, and then we'd do their work the next year. If they are on an in period method, they need to get this work done. We would bill them the 6 months missing, and then they'll go on the recurring billing as of now, and then we'll do their work somewhere in the year. So it depends. If they need to have this year's work done, it depends on whether they're going the in advanced or the in period method of your fixed price agreements, whether we bill them for this work as a separate engagement or not. Hope that answers it.
Yeah, what you don't want to be doing is charging someone $200 and then doing like 2 years worth of work.
Yeah, hard out. It's really common.
That is really common. So
you need to really be clear of what work needs to be done and how are we setting out those engagements, and is our practice, are we billing in advance or are we billing on in period? Really good webinar. It's a 25-minute webinar that we did 2 weeks ago, so it's worth checking out. Cool. Hi, we import our annual jobs at the start of each year. We have reoccurring jobs like GST. Just wondering if we are better to set up a new annual accounts job for next year once we finish the previous year. What would you recommend? I think I caught all of that. We import our annual accounts jobs.
You import your annual accounts jobs. Great. Provided you're charging separately for that, that's fine. Yeah.
So again, it comes back to that. You always want to think about the golden rule. Time and invoices should be in the same job. And so just think about your engagements. Always come back to going, what is the engagement? When does it start? And when does it finish? And how are we billing for it? So as long as you keep that in mind, you'll be fine. Sorry for the not such a great answer on that one. I didn't 100% get the question. Cool. Few comments about the poll, and that we've got 8 new messages down here. Almost done. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. We've still got over almost 100 people here, which is great. Cool. Really good question. How far away are the client performance reports, and will we be able to get these by client manager? In the meantime, what is the, okay, really good question. So client performance reports, our team, so.
You're talking to the right person.
You're talking to the right person, yeah. So I'm the head of product at Link Reporting. So basically what we're doing right now is we are working on some back-end infrastructure around our migration script. So when we migrate the data into our database, we're improving that script. That's the current project. We're hoping to have that delivered in about 2 weeks. The next thing after that is, because you're not going to experience any benefit of that work. Some things you have to do behind the scenes to make the platform run well. So I'm doing stuff that doesn't really benefit you at all at the moment. In about 2 weeks, we're going to kick into the client reports. I'd like to think we can deliver those, probably build in 4 weeks, test over 2 weeks, probably talking 6 weeks. Give me 8 weeks and we should have some client reports. I probably
double that.
Come on. I really want them because what I'm really excited about the client reports is I want to be able to run a report and you can see all of your clients by average hourly rate. So this is why I'm really excited. For me, these client reports are going to be the best reports we have. So I'm really excited about having them.
Yeah, one of the challenges very much related to what we're doing now, what we talked about today is repricing your services or understanding if we're pricing fairly or not. At the moment, we can show you that on your completed jobs really well. And we can show you that on open jobs really well. But it's quite difficult to understand during the life of the job whether that was a well-priced job or not. So yeah, that's the problem we're solving essentially.
What's really going to be really great about the client reports is it's essentially your WIP report, right? So if you look at running a 12-month WIP report, you can see how much time you've added to the client. You can see what the write-offs were for that client. So you got this information. What we're doing with the client reports is we're taking that WIP data and then we're putting in the time data as well. So then you can go, right, well, that's the amount of time to generate that amount of billable WIP. That's what we invoice them. That was our write-offs. And then from there, we can start calculating things like average hourly rates at a client level. So it's really exciting. This information is not available at the moment, and link reporting, it will be, hopefully, I say 8 weeks, Ruben says double that. We'll see who's right. But it's going to be really phenomenal reports. Being able to see profitability by client in a perfect list, average hourly rates by client, with drill downs into the transactions and everything. So think of your team performance reports. Your team performance report, everything available in the team report will be available by client. That is what we're working on. I've written all the logic. I just need the team to write the code now. Would love a link reporting webinar. We'll get one of those going as well. We've got a few requests for webinars today, which is really cool.
Write that down.
Yeah. Can you add a template more than once in PI if you want to have the same task across multiple entities? So absolutely, yes, you can have more than one template. That is the benefit of PI. As we saw when Reubs took us through the CSV import or the recurring jobs in XPM, one template per job, but PI gives you the ability to have multiple services per template. So each of those services can have templates, or a template we recommend, one template per service, but then that has obviously multiple tasks. So to simplify everything, using PI is the way to go. Cool. We don't use tasks. We only use jobs, and we report by category within XPM reports, which is set up to be the accounting departments, not fixed price agreement, etc., that you can have in your XPM setup. Not sure what the question is there, but if you don't use tasks,
you don't have time.
Tracking time, yeah. So again, there's
a big gaping hole
really
where your reporting is. Yes.
Time. If you're capturing your time and you're capturing your invoices, you can see the write-offs. Write-offs is the most valuable information you can get for improving efficiencies. You could have team members that need help. You could have services that you're underpricing. Your team could need training on a certain, you might be doing three-way forecasts and use Futurely for that, or Spotlight reporting. You might go, well, we're writing off a lot of time on this particular service. How about we get someone in from Spotlight to train our team on how to use the software more efficiently so we can not write off so much time? Or you might find that if Daniel's struggling to do this service, all that information comes from our write-offs. So it's super valuable to capture your time against the correct tasks and have your invoices in there as well. Cool. Cool, Peter Morgan answering some questions for us. Awesome, thanks Peter. Pete. Yeah, that's great. Oh, cool. Does this mean that we can give our team access to the WIP and have solved the issue around team back engineering other people's salaries? Good question. So again, there's another link reporting question. So no, these client reports will not include user permissions. That will be the next thing. We've got schedule and send as an interim solution around that. But no, you will not have, you cannot give everyone in your team access to link reporting just yet. That's going to be the last thing we're doing on our build. The first thing is doing this backend infrastructure. Then we're going to get the client reports running. Then we'll be looking at our user permissions and things. So that is going to be a little bit further down the track, but I'd like to see it done by the end of the year for sure. Cool. Reubs, you look like you're Hawaii, and I look like I'm in a Mawson hut.
I am in Hawaii. I'm
in Wellington. It's a bit colder down here.
I'm in Honolulu.
Awesome. So I think, the Q&A has been firing off again as well.
Yeah, we might need to wrap it up.
No, same. I think we've answered all the questions. If we haven't, if we've missed your question for whatever reason, get in touch. We've got another webinar happening in 2 weeks' time. Is that right, Reubs?
Yes, we are, and that one's going to be a bit different. This has been very much very training orientated. This next webinar we're running, if you can see my screen, is around KPI. It's more accounting orientated, I suppose, measuring team performance using ROI. We're not just going to be talking about link reporting. It's going to be a wider look at the challenges, the methods, and the benefits of measuring team performance using ROI. And that'll be delivered by Will.
It's a real, what's the word? A controversial topic. So I'm going to be stepping on some rocky ground. I can't think of a better analogy. How you capture your base rates and your costs dictate your ROI. So I'm going to look at the different methods of how we do calculate your costs and the implications on your ROI. So there's going to be some, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I haven't written the content yet, but in 2 weeks I'll be delivering it. So come along to that if you want to hear me say some controversial things.
Right.
Sweet.
We'll, we'll be in touch via email. Otherwise, you can register via the events page at linkedpractice xpmjobtemplates.com. Yeah, and if we didn't get to your question, reach out to us. We're all over the internet. Find our YouTube channel or go to Link Reporting or Link Academy and hit us up by the chat. We're there all day. So
Just keep coming to the webinars. Come and hang out. It's fun.
Cool. Hopefully found all of that worthwhile. And yeah, we'll wrap it up here, eh?
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thanks, team. See ya.